What was your "so that's why that rule exists" moment? Why can't I go in my parents' bedroom at night? I was 12. I work for a warehouse that manufactures different products. One product is made with pure peppermint oil. The stuff we get is very concentrated, literally go home every day smelling like Christmas jizzed on me. The restrooms are on the other side of the warehouse, so my boss had a sink installed so people could easily wash themselves off if they got any oil on themselves. One big rule that is highly encouraged is to wash your hands before you leave that area of the warehouse to do anything, even before going to the restroom. Every single person has only broken that rule once, because it only takes one minty vag or minty dong to learn why you wash your hands first. Did you ever see the tag on a hair blow dryer that says, "Do not use while sleeping"? Silly, right? Well, I met someone whose family all sleeps with a blow dryer on in their bed. They still do it after the daughter woke up to a scorched bed and the mom says sometimes the blow dryer sparks. Incredibly stupid people. While camping I was chopping wood into kindling when my dad says, "Honey, you never chop wood in sandals or flip-flops. You need to wear proper shoes just in case you swing and miss. Wouldn't want to chop off your toe." I say, "Okay dad." Take a big swing, miss, and the damn axe lands right next to my big toe in the dirt. I've never seen my dad smile so big. I guess this is cheating, since I'm the reason for the rule. When I was like 9 I went to Kings Island in Ohio. There was a restaurant in the park that had bars laid out for people to queue in. My family was literally the only customers there. So as they were waiting, naturally I decided to run back and forth under the bars. I was young and short enough where I just had to bend a little to run under them. My hands came up a little, and I was running full speed. My arms caught the bar, which pulled my head up just enough to knock my 2 front teeth clean out, spewing a bloody mess. Fast forward over 2 decades later, I'm back at the park. Same restaurant now has chains instead of bars and a sign saying, "Don't run underneath them." I chuckle to myself and ask one of the workers what the story there was. Though like a decade and a half ago some dumbass kid ducked his mouth up running into bars that were there. My physics and chemistry teacher accidentally demonstrated why long loose hair around a Bunsen burner is a bad idea. No running around the pool. My friend split his head open chasing someone around the pool deck. They taught me to never jump off spinning chairs at school. So out of spite, I jumped off the spinning chair the same day they talked about the dangers of standing on a spinning chair. I ended up spraining my leg. It was a really fun experience explaining to my parents, doctors, and teachers what I had done. Working retail, one of the racks in the back room had a giant wad of foam stapled to it. What's with the foam? Oh, you'll find out one day. In too much of a hurry, I turned around quickly and smacked my face right into the foam. Broke my glasses and cut my nose open. Would have KO'd me without the foam. Remember the simple look both ways before you cross a road. I still do that, even when the pedestrian light is green for me. Case in point, walking across the street when it's green for me and almost getting my foot flattened from a car driver that wanted to rush over his changing traffic light when it was already yellow. In my state, there is a law requiring that all bookshelves, tall filing cabinets, etc. in schools must be bolted to the walls. This is because the Thursday before Christmas my 7th grade year, one of my friends was crushed under a bookcase. When it fell over, she died a week later. Y'all secure your furniture. Not exactly a rule, but always, and I say always, cook with proper clothing, a shirt and pants. Was making french fries one day with no shirt and put the fries careless. I still have marks from that day. My mom told us not to try and climb up the water slide we had that slid into the pool. I figured it was because she was a fun hater. Really it was so that you didn't slip. Fall face first into wood planks. Almost break your nose and eye socket. Then get the skin on your eyelid glued back together, causing a permanent scar between your eyelid and eyebrow. I learned the hard way. When talking about airplanes, They always discuss the number of people on the plane as souls on board. That always struck me as a little poetic. But it was explained that, in the event that the plane needs assistance, rescuers need to know the number of live people, and sometimes planes transport corpses. I'm more. So that's why it said read the instructions before you begin. We weren't allowed to go to the bathroom in between periods. I was confused, because that would be the perfect time to use the restroom. But I later found out that, because some kids were stealing the soap dispensers, the school wanted to prevent vandalism by making sure who goes to the bathroom and when. When I was still in university, I lived at a condo with roommates. It was a very student-full place and there was a pool. On the pool was a sign for no glass in the pool, like bottles or something like that. I never thought about it until I saw someone drop a bottle in the pool and then someone proceeded to cut their foot with it. Really killed the mood of the party too. 250 lb weight limit on waterside. I weighed 320 at the time. I spent some time looking over the elaborate structure holding up the slides. I was confident they were built well enough to hold my fat ass. Turns out it's not weight capacity that's the problem. It's velocity. I caught up with the rider in front of me. I was going so fast I almost flew out on the turns and would shoot up in the air then fall back in. I only rode it once. So SSA has a few rules on who exactly is entitled to survivors benefits. Survivors benefits generally are mostly for 1 spouses, 2 minor kids, 3 disabled adult kids, if they meet a few criteria. Widows benefits have more rules, but follow similar lines as the ones for kids. However, you can be disqualified from collecting on those if you were found to have murdered or took part in murdering the beneficiary whose record you would get paid from. In training, I was like, is this a thing that actually happens? So, I work at a different agency now, but had a friend who had a dude come in to file for widow's benefits off the wife's record. He was of the right age. To qualify for widow's benefits gotta be at least 60 and part of the process is that, like with retirement claims, we talk to you about your work record to make sure we have all the right info, since some employers can't file W-2s correctly for shit. This dude had a huge work gap, which isn't super unusual in our area. My friend asks if that work gap is correct. Dude says yes. Says he was in prison. Okay, cool. They move on. Friend asks how the wife died, standard question. Dude goes, well, she was murdered. Friend, starting to connect the dots and having already had some weird vibes off this guy, asks, sir, who murdered her? Dude answers. And then my friend has to go and very awkwardly tell him that unfortunately, we can't pay out benefits in this case. I think he took it well, but yeah, SSA has rules for everything since, in comparison to other agencies, pretty much everyone will wind up filing for retirement or having some other business name changes. Disability apps, replacement SSNS with SSA proper at some point. There's a ton of case exhibits on stuff, like what to do with a bigamous marriage if someone filed for spouse benefits generally. First spouse wins, but it can get complicated, or what counts as a legitimate child, which can be messy if a kid was born after the dad died and dad didn't leave good DNA evidence, or how fringe religious communities deal with SSA issues. Whenever I would open or break down cardboard boxes, I would always sweep the knife or scissors toward my other hand that was holding the box still. I was told at least 100 times to not cut toward myself by my mother and grandparents. I now have a pretty large scar on my left hand from accidentally stabbing myself with scissors, and I no longer cut towards myself. I was galloping a horse around the indoor arena. It had hay stacked in the middle and equipment parked by the hay. So not a big open space, and the horse cracked my knee into a piece of equipment going around the end of the haystack. Oh, that's why we are not supposed to gallop in the arena. In my defense, I was 16. There were no adults there that day, and someone insulted my favorite horse by saying he wasn't very fast. I'm now 41 and have had arthritis in my knee for years. 5 years ago, an orthopedic surgeon I was seeing for a broken bone said I probably cracked my kneecap. As a flight attendant, I was always amused at having to demonstrate how to use a seatbelt, as I thought it was something most everyone knows how to do by now. Until a friend of mine told me that she couldn't figure out how to operate the seatbelt in her husband's truck because it is a restored 1985 model without automatic adjusting seatbelts and actually have a latch instead of a quick auto click lock like newer vehicles. I now have no problems demonstrating seatbelts, since I realize some of the younger generation legitimately do not know how to operate one. In Alabama and Kentucky, and probably some other states, it is illegal to walk around with an ice cream cone in your pocket, on its face. That's one of the dumbest restrictions ever thought of. Who is that possibly hurting? However, it makes sense when you find out that that was a method of stealing horses. You'd put ice cream on your person, walk by a person's horse, and it would follow you because it wants the sweetness. If you got caught by the police, then, unlike if you were physically dragging a horse to a new place, you could defend yourself by saying, "I don't do anything. It was following me home." So yeah, finding that fact out made the law make so much more sense. Laws that exist to stop people hiding the evidence of crimes. No throwing moose from an airplane, because the only reason to do that is you poached it and are about to get caught. No cleaning fish until you get back to shore, because then it's not obvious it was legal size. Limit on how many items in the dressing room, because then you can steal a few and no one notices. I personally witnessed one rule get created because of something my friend did in 7th grade. See, we were in the weight room for pay one day. The weight room had really low ceilings with ceiling fans attached to them. Well, we're in there, and the teacher tells us that we will be jump roping. While the teacher is explaining things to the class, I'm standing next to my friend, and he swings the rope in front of him. But the rope gets caught in the ceiling fan, spins around in the fan about 10 times, then gets projected into a weight rack, almost hitting someone. Now you have to jump rope in the hallway where there are no fans. I still bring up that story almost 3 years later. Treat every firearm as though it were loaded. The 4 rules of firearms. 1. Treat all firearms as loaded. 2. Never point at anything you don't intend to destroy. 3. Be aware of your target and what's beyond it. 4. Finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. In Australia, it's illegal to drive in thongs, flip-flops, not G-strings. I don't think they could police G-strings. Learned this when I drove in thongs and the plastic part got caught on the pedal while I was going round a roundabout, and in the process of trying to get my shoe back on, I got the brake and gas pedals mixed up. Almost crashed, but luckily screwed my head back on quickly. My old high school has a rule that no freshmen are allowed to leave for open lunch, which was only 2 days of the semester during finals for classes. 2 finals each day with an hour lunch between. Turns out the reason freshmen weren't allowed out is because there were a few who decided it would be fun to play chicken with a train on the tracks that are nearby the school. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Always heard this, but until I realized how my jabs were actually venting my anger and hurt feelings, I learned to focus on myself for insight rather than on the other guy. There was that scene in Frozen where Hans betrays Anna, locks her inside a room to die, and then tells everyone that she died. But they got married just before that, and everyone accepts him as their new king. That made me realize why there must be witnesses when people get married. Taking a piss after a post-workout icy hot rub down. No cell phones while on the clock at work has been the rule for the last 2 jobs I've had, and there's been no exceptions to it. I'd need about 50 pairs of hands and feet, and no, I'm not exaggerating, just to count the number of people fired because they were caught with their cell phones on them. The 2 major reasons for this rule have been because a couple of people were on them constantly and not doing their jobs, and about 3 or 4 people were caught taking pictures of customers' credit cards. So now if you're caught with a cell phone while clocked in, it's an automatic termination. Always use the guard on the table saw. Not me. Happened to my dad about 3 weeks ago. He removed the safety guard of his table saw to make a cut. It kicked back, and his left non-dominant hand went right into the blade. Cut his index and middle fingers right down to the bone. He's lucky he didn't lose them. He had to have surgery to reset his fingers. Several bones were broken and dislocated and needed the tendons stitched back together on his index finger. He's doing okay now. Will still be several weeks until he's healed. Clothing stores have signs posted that read, "Limit no more than 3 items allowed in fitting rooms." When a store manager was asked why, he said, "Shoplifters will often take many items into dressing rooms without any intention of trying them on. They do this in order to stuff 1 or 2 items into bags, switch labels from more expensive to less expensive items, as well as to distract salespeople in the fitting room area. Often, shoplifters will leave items they don't want inside the dressing room, so sales associates can't tell which ones they've taken and left behind." Lift with your legs, not your back. I'm not a fitness expert, but I did do some temp work warehouses, where having proper form is important. I do not want to get any hernia discs or anything. No water bottles during tests at my school. It's because students used to put answers in labels, so they could cheat. Let's just say I will never doubt the "don't put your finger here" sticker ever again. Especially not when it's on a blender. I don't know if it's a rule or not technically, but in high school I left early because study hall was my last period. I was behind a construction vehicle that read "do not follow," which I never understood. A little up the road we were driving through some construction and I'm just following this dump truck as it sorta pulls to the right through some cones, pulls off to the right and stops. So now I'm just awkwardly chilling behind this truck, as if my 1991 white 88 Oldsmobile is part of the construction crew. Luckily the car behind me watched me make this mistake, and waited patiently for me to collect myself, and back up onto the road. Full of shame. So yeah, that's what the "do not follow" means. This is a really ducked up example, but it's the one I can think of. My job, like every other on earth, has strict sexual harassment policies. I was harassed, and quite frankly violated, by a superior at my job. However, this person was drinking, and because I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, I felt that I would be blamed and shamed for it. It also didn't help that I was in the middle of applying to another position in my company, which I did get, and will start soon. I chalked the encounter up to drunken behavior. Although I did call my executive director around 10 PM that night and tell him something wasn't right, that I needed time to think before I make a report. I didn't report it. A stupid mistake. But it was something that I was scared of coking back to bite me in the ass and ruin my chances for the position. My executive director told me there's a no retaliation policy in place to protect me, and that by reporting it had prevented from happening to others. I finally got the courage together to tell the entire story to my director, only to find out that this happened to 3 other girls. After it happened to me, I realized then why it was so important to take action immediately, but I also realized that I need to be more assertive with people. Always wear your helmet while on a bike. Always. It doesn't matter if you're just going to your local store or going for a long ride. Put the damn thing on. A sudden swerve or slip on the road pavement is all it can take. I learned this thankfully not the hard way, but ended up with a couple nasty bruises and road rash from wrist to shoulder. As for the helmet, enough damage to drive the lesson home. Never put a burnt match back in the box. My then girlfriend did this every time, until she had the moment once. No lasting effects, fortunately. Never say Macbeth in a theater. It's not that it makes bad things happen per se. It just makes everyone blame everything that does go wrong on you for saying Macbeth. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.